Man, I swear, by the end of quarantine, my hair's gonna be as long as Zoroark's ponytail. That was a lame joke. And put it in anyway. Hey, what's up guys? Jukem here. Welcome back to another Pokken Moveset crafting video. This time we're gonna go over Zoroark. Now Zoroark, he is, how I should say, a failed Lucario in some respect. What I mean by that was they tried to make another furry to put in a movie, and then it didn't work as well as Lucario did. But you know, Zoroark is still cool, and people still really like it. Still a really popular Pokemon that people would like to see in Pokken. And I know that sounds pretty mean, but I really do like Zoroark a lot, actually. So why not we start off with, what kind of Pokemon is Zoroark? Zoroark is the Illusion Fox Pokémon. It is the final evolved form of Zora. It's just a pure dark type from the Unova region, and it's a very special one because it's actually the first and I think only non-mythical Pokemon who ever was event only for a certain period of time. Because other like normal Pokemon or legendary Pokemon you get in the game, but for Zora and Zoroark, you had to bring in event Celebi or an event one of the legendary beasts to get them. It's two separate events, and I thought it was very cool. But because of that, you can't really get them in like black and white anymore, like normally. You can't get them in black and white too, though, because they give you a Zora, specifically Zora, which is pretty cool. Now, Zora and Zoroark, they both pretty much care about their family a lot. Like, if you've seen the movie, it's all about like family bonds there, of the baby Zora trying to find its mother Zoroark. It's an innate trait that they have, and it's also very cute because sometimes the Zoroark will put like their babies in their like hair on the top of their head and they just keep them safe like that. I don't know, something about that is very cute with the Zora. But the most notable thing about Zoroark is obviously, but here we go, they're a master illusionist. They can create many different scenarios that'll like screw with your mind, and they both do that for self-defense and to try to get away from people, and they can even do it to like hundreds of people at once, which I think is really sick. It does that like in the movie too, I think, and also just the Pokedex saying that. Its illusions aren't just like in the main games where it just disguises itself as a Pokemon. Other media sometimes show it as like giving you different things. As for notable Zoroark, going back to the movie once again, that's where the Mama Zoroark was just trying to I think the plot of it was like it got kind of blackmailed into turning into the legendary beast. I actually did not like research that for this video, but like I just remember from years ago. And then it's also trying to like keep its Zora safe, which is a really cool thing. And also Celebi was in it for some reason, I think. I do not remember anything. And then going back to the black and white event, that's where you can find the Zoroark by bringing in the legendary beast. But also in black 2 and white 2, you can actually find in the same area, I think, you could find a event with a Zoroark, not battle them, but they'll be like, oh, did you know Zoroark or like illusionist, and then it turns out you were just talking to an elusive person the entire time telling you what Zoroark are like, and then it just leaves. And then the last one, because I gotta bring up Pokepark again, like Superior. There's a Zoroark in that game who you have to rescue with Zora. And it, honestly, that type of stuff just shows like how strong their bonds are, because like I feel like a lot of me is just like Zora, and you have to find the Zoroark and be like, oh, you gotta help his mom or like or whatever. And I think it's very cute. Go play Pokepark 2. It's a really good game. And with that, let's go see how it would play. Being that Zoroark is a kind of self-defensive Pokemon with its illusions, I feel like it'd be a fighter who would use a lot of like trickery and baits to challenge the opponent and before punishing them for trying to hit him. Now I still say it would be a rushdown character, but it would be using those baits to bait the opponent and then get its opportunity to rush in and punish them and keep up the pressure. Its unique mechanic would be what it usually uses to use these baits, but it's also quick and can use other moves besides illusions to trick the opponent. These quickness and feints can allow it to avoid damage, though it does have very low HP at 510 and also a weak block if it does end up being pressured a lot. Going into its unique mechanic, which is obviously the illusions, by holding down the A button for any of its Pokemon moves, Zoroark can create an illusion around them that tricks the opponent into thinking it's doing something else when it's actually doing another thing. These illusions are obviously fake and don't have a hitbox towards them, but they do pass through the opponents. This does signal that the illusions are there, and the opponent can react to the situation to try to punish Zoroark if they know what the follow-up is going to be. That said, they still have to be quick about it, and Zoroark can always space the move itself so that it doesn't actually reach the opponent and like face through them much, at least not in time for them to react to the actual follow-up that it's going to do. Basically, it's just one giant no-you if the opponent tries to attack the illusion, only to get like freaking bodied right after. I did say that the opponent would have to react quick, but when Zoroark does use these illusions, the attack follow-up is slightly slower, just so it's like it's not very super unfair where the opponent's just like, oh, I attacked right this, and then it's like, oh, here comes my I-11 attack follow-up that you had no idea was coming. Haha, got him. The more I say this, the more I realize Zoroark would totally be a character I'd play against, considering I use Sceptile. Now there's an exception to the illusion where it's not part of the A moves, but that's in field phase, and I'll get right to that. All around a very speedy character. I wouldn't say technical, because I feel like the way it uses the illusions are to specifically like get in and rush down the opponent, but I guess you could also say technical. I guess it's very dependent. I feel like it fits both criteria, but I'm just putting it as a speed character here. Oh, and since I didn't really bring it up here, for the illusions, Zoroark kind of like teleports to where he actually is, kind of. So like if you attack in that area before he like actually appears, then that would be able to work too. So any like wide ranged attacks would be able to do it. Maybe some of them would have invincibility too before he comes out too. So it's just not like super stupid that he could just like get hit by super wide ranged attacks. And I've been saying super a lot. Play Super Mystery Dungeon. Anyway, before my brain breaks, let's go to his 5A. Let's go to the notable general attacks and traits. I totally forgot. You think by the 5th one I would really like, 1, I would know what comes next, and 2, I would change that super long title at the top of the screen. I have no idea what is wrong with me. Now generally Zoroark would attack with very quick like slashes and other types of moves like punches, kicks, even other acrobatic moves, since it does seem to be a very acrobatic Pokemon like backflip kicks. Now obviously it's a dark types of dark energy too, and like I mentioned, it would also use some illusions when it's not using its A moves. For example, it would use it for its back Y. Zoroark stands still in its idle animation, waiting to get hit. This is a counter. Now, while it is a counter, it doesn't actually glow blue like other ones. I guess that's just to hide what it actually is like, but don't worry, it's not going to be like overpowered in this case as I go on. Now, when Zoroark gets hit in this state, he creates an illusion showing him getting hit by the attack. This hit animation actually matches what move attacks him. So like certain moves that like have the opponent like go down like that, it would show that, or some moves that would show them like getting knocked back like that, it would be like that. Now obviously since it's an illusion, it's a ruse as I say. After a second, the illusion disappears and Zoroark reappears from where it was and lunges forward with a far-reaching claw strike. This is a single hit attack that obviously phase shifts, but also as Zoroark is rushing in, he goes through any projectiles that are on his way, just so it's like more consistent with that, so the opponent can't just spam projectiles against him. Now this move I think is actually pretty good, but it does have weaknesses. First of all, the counter armor isn't frame 1. I would say it's like frame 3 like certain other command counters. But like I said, it doesn't show the blue. But it also can be grabbed or pierced. But also, the big thing here is that opponents who know what moves they have that are going to phase shift, it wouldn't actually phase shift Zoroark. So if they hit them with those moves, they would realize, oh, he's using back Y, I should prepare myself with something like a counter attack and punish Zoroark. And of course, if Zoroark doesn't actually get hit by an attack, it shows an animation of it like, I don't know, resting down or something. We're like, oh, it didn't work. It signifies that he can get punished. Now for its 8Y, it's a very simple move. It involves Zoroark ducking down a bit, which is when it gets its anti-air frames, and then Zoroark raises its one leg up, doing a kick that hits in front of it and above it. Now I guess for an easier understanding what I mean by this move, I was thinking of like Snake's up tilt, where it hits all in front of him in that arc. So it's like very like vertical like hitbox, but it doesn't hit behind him, but it does launch the opponent in the air for a combo. Opponents who are grounded do get launched into the air, but only into an air tag. If it does crit them though, they do get launched into the air for a combo starter, similar to if they were in the air. In general, has a lot of vertical range, but not too much horizontal range. For Zoroark's 8X, this is actually a pretty cool move I thought of. Zoroark backflips away from the opponent, so like it's like the opponent's right here, then they go like, oops, I'm over here now. It's gonna be similar to, I guess, like, I don't know, like Night Slash a bit, where he's like can get out of the way really quick of attacks. He goes in the air during this, crushing other grabs like any other 8X would. Now after this jump back to avoid grabs and other attacks, it then jumps back forward with one of its claws slashing upwards while spinning a bit. And by spinning a bit, I mean like more vertically, like I guess like it just slashes 4Y a bit. I feel the need to mention stuff like that because I'm just like, oh gosh, I have to think like visually about it. But like think of it like that. He does like a side flip to do it. He is also in the air during the second part, but both of the jumps aren't really too high off the ground. And because of this, he's immune to lows during it unless he's on the ground during certain parts of the actual attack. But for the most part, he's immune to them. On hit, this would make the opponent roll back a bit, but on crit, it would actually launch them into the air for a combo starter. Now the cool thing about this move is that during the jump back, Zoroark can actually cancel the attack with R, and he'll just be jumping back a bit and holding block. This is what makes it a little more different to Weavile's Night Slash, because when Weavile cancels Night Slash, he goes back to where he was. But in this case, Zoroark may be a bigger target than someone like Weavile, but he also goes further back. Now, longer range moves can obviously hit him, and the move is normally reactable if he's just using it in neutral and trying to lunge forward, and also it's very minus on block. Not punishable, but very minus. If Zoroark has the time to do it, he can use this move to get space in between the opponent if the opponent's pressuring him too much. And of course, the cancel means that the Zoroark can react to the situation and be like, oh, the opponent's blocking, okay, I should probably not do it. Or if he sees that an attack missed but doesn't want to use the follow-up attack, he can transition into another, maybe longer ranged attack that can do more damage in the long run. Now for how far it does lunge back, I would say a little less than how Weavile goes back for Night Slash. I know that's not like, maybe a very tiny amount, not too much, but like not enough to be able to be like, oh, Zoroark's just like getting away for free and he can just keep running away like that. He just keeps doing backflips to get out of the way. Aggressively backflips away from a champ. Now for its stances. For its high stance, I would have it be like Empoleons or Breakstons, where it actually gains a little bit of support every second, so long as he's holding it. And then its low stance, he just avoids highs on frame 1. I feel like the low stance is always like kind of lazy for that, but sometimes they get unique. They're not gonna be like Blastoise, where it's like, oh, he actually gets counter on highs. Well, guess what? That's just worse. For its counter attack, I want you to think, if anyone's familiar with Killer Instinct, Think of Saberwolf's Eclipse attack. He puts his arm down on the floor with dark energy around it, and he swipes all around him upward. This is a slashing attack that hits all around him and gets the opponent off of him even if they're in front of him, behind him, or above him. Because it has such a wide range, it doesn't actually combo at all. For the uncharged hit, even on crit, it makes the opponent roll back. Now when it hits the opponent with its fully charged counterattack, or if they're in the air for its uncharged one, it launches them into the air and causes an air attack, similar to Blastoise's and Charizard's counterattacks. Now because this is an arc, the attack is somewhat slow for attacking above and behind him, mostly behind him, and it also doesn't really do as much damage as something like Charizard or Blastoise's counterattacks. It makes up for it with its range. Basically, it's a decent option for getting opponents off of him and to stop opponents from trying to get out of the way if they do hit the counterattack in time. Like, I guess, for example, for Blaze against 5YY, he can actually jump cancel it, but if he tries to do it too late, he would still get hit by the counterattack. Now for both of its grabs. For its field phase grab, Zoroark would swipe at the opponent multiple times before stopping for a second and then disappearing in an illusion. It reappears further back to where it was before. Afterward, it then pounces into the air and jump kicks the opponent, knocking them back a bit with a face shift. I really wanted to showcase the illusions a bit more besides just with its attacks, just because I think the illusions are really cool and can show off the personality a bit of Zoroark. So you'll see in like its next grab and also its burst attack, spoiler alert. Its dual face grab involves it slashing upward against the opponent, knocking them back a bit. It then prepares to do a second slash, but then as soon as it's about to hit the opponent, it actually stops, and then it's just like, before disappearing in an illusion. Now I feel like it's just me, but I feel like Zoroark sometimes would just be able to do stuff like that, be like, haha, you really thought you had something here. And then it just destroys the opponent right after. But yeah, anyway, after it disappears, the Zoroark then appears above the opponent from behind it and dive kicks them in the back of the head, launching them back a bit. Now this causes a knockdown, but it doesn't like launch them into the air like super high. It's similar to Decidueye's dual grab, where it kind of like skipping the rocks on the pond or something like that. Is that how you describe it? Okay, now with all that done, let's be for real this time with his actual 5A Night Daze. To start with this attack, Zoroark raises his arms into the air before slamming down to the ground, surrounding himself in a pillar of dark energy. Pillar is a high priority projectile, so it can activate stuff like Miracle, but it's not going to get erased like some other projectiles. Because of this trait, it's actually very defensive as it can delete projectiles similar to something like Defog or Light Screen. Now this doesn't hit like super far away from Zoroark, it just like kind of surrounds him. Like if Zoroark's here, the column's going to be like probably right here, and it goes up. So the opponent gets hit multiple times over, and obviously it would also hit airborne opponents, but it's not like a true anti-air. Ground opponents get knocked back a bit, but on aerial opponents, he can actually combo after this. It deals 4 hits, and after the attack connects, whether on block or on hit, it actually dash cancel forward or backward or with jump. Without these follow-ups, it is left punishable, kind of like Defog is. And now here's when we start getting into the illusion business. When it's holding down the R or B button, whether that's for the dash or for the jump, the illusion shows it doing the opposite scenario. Oops, screw it, I'm done doing many failed takes. The illusion goes away partway through the dash or jump, but by then the opponent will probably think, oh, he did this action, and then it's like the opposite option. This can open up the opponent as soon as Zoroark reappears, because by then it might be too late, and the illusion matches which direction Zoroark would go. So if he was holding backwards would be, it would show a dash backwards that's fake. And I guess just to mention this, just in case, if Zoroark jumps straight up, it just shows him going forward. Now this move actually has 2 different illusion inputs. One for the dash or jump, but also for a 5 holding. Now with it, it does throw its arms down and shows briefly what Night Daze would normally do, but obviously there's no hitbox there, so the opponent can realize what's happening. But because of this, it gets out of it sooner, and it can actually do its dashes or jumps a lot quicker. Now it wouldn't be a way to like feint the opponent and try to punish them, like if they were trying to block it on reaction and then he just grabs them, because the dash, Zoroark has decently fast dashes, but it wouldn't be fast enough to be like unreactable, especially if they realize that the attack isn't hitting their block. Because of this, it doesn't actually delete projectiles either, but it can technically like get out of the way of projectiles a lot quicker. It's especially useful if it's actually trying to like fight Chandelure, who's using a lot of moves that can't actually be deleted by projectile removal. Now what makes this move very funky is that you can use both illusion inputs at the same time. So like if you hold A and then you hold B or something, and then you just like, you're zooming all over the place with fake illusions to trick the opponent into thinking where you actually are, and then you're just like 5 miles away. Or you can also make them think you're going to do the illusion and just get some breathing room if you're fighting someone like Machamp who just wants to get in your face constantly. He has a lot of options to get away from opponents who can abuse being in front of his face wall plus, but also has a lot of moves to get in this case, like using its dash after deleting a projectile to get in against a zoner. It's a tool that has a varied uses, but it's also, I can see, being very annoying because it's just like, oh, he faked me out like 5 different ways. Oh, I saw him dash forward. Oh wait, he's in the air now. What the heck? All because you thought he was going to hit you with a move. That said, while the vertical range is pretty big, the horizontal range isn't too big. I would say you have to be somewhat in front of your opponent to be able to use it effectively and hit them. But all around, it's a very great move still. All right, its next move is 6A. It's a multi-purpose move. like Night Daze. The Zoroark kind of rushes down in all fours as it jumps up a bit. When it jumps up a bit like this, it's immune to lows, but it's not immune to lows all the time. It's only during certain intervals. Now it does this for 4 seconds total before automatically stopping, but you can stop it early with R or press B to jump with it. This is kind of like Garchomp's running stance, where it can be used to approach the opponent pretty quickly, but it's also very useful for longer range low attacks, or if you want to try just using it to avoid like closer range low attacks and then get out of the way and punish. Now while it is immune to lows during these hops, it's still considered grounded, so it won't activate stuff like Rotom. Now for its illusion input, Zoroark shows the running animation happening, but then it disappears after a bit. This illusion disappears at around mid-screen, and where Zoroark is depends on what you do during the move. Because you see, Zoroark is still technically running with the illusion. They're like on top of each other, but Zoroark can cancel the move with R or B while the illusion is still running to fake the opponent out into thinking it's just running straight at them. In Field Phase, you can also hold left or right to run in those directions with agility. Now, as you can see, there's actually multiple things here for agility. It has 2 different follow-up attacks depending on the input done afterward. With the 6 AA input low sweep, Zoroark ducks down and does a sweeping kick forward. This lunges pretty far, and also Zoroark is immune to highs during this, so you can go from like immune to lows to immune to highs real quick. The move can be punished on block and it is considered a low, so stuff like jumps will beat it out if you can react to it. Now, while it does have those weaknesses, it is still a pretty good move. It is pretty quick, and it also knocks the opponent down with a speed debuff. Like that matters because you're already in their face, but now they can't get away. For the second input, Fury Swipes, which is done with a Y or X input after the initial 6A, Zoroark jumps in the air and slashes all around it with its claws. This covers a wide area while doing 3 hits total. It does hit behind it, so it can be used for cross-ups after the initial agility. While it technically is slow because you do have to do the jump and then he's going like arcing over the opponent, Zoroark is plus on block. For some weaknesses, it can be anti-aired and it can't actually combo afterward unless you get a critical hit. This still does reset the opponent, and Zoroark is very plus right afterward. Now both these follow-ups do have both their own illusion inputs. Basically, similar to Night Daze, it would just show the opposite attack being done. So if you do the illusion input for low sleep, it'll show Fury Swipes and vice versa. This is incredibly useful because both moves have something the opponent can react with to punish them, only to get baited out. For low sleep, you'd either want to block the attack to punish them or to jump to avoid it. And because of that, Fury Swipes is really good because it's plus on block if they do block it, but if they're in the air, they're going to get hit. For Fury Swipes, it can be anti-aired. What low sleep would avoid that anti-air and then punish the opponent by hitting under them. Now both these options can be beaten simultaneously depending on the move. Like if you have either a big move or you jump in the air while attacking to avoid the low sweep illusion. That one's pretty risky. Counterattack's also a very good way of using that, but you also got to be aware, you kind of have to react preemptively to what they're going to do because the agility, they're going to be reacting to agility and be like, oh, they're probably going to do a follow-up. Okay, I'm just going to be careful, hold block, and holding block already, they're going to be blocking the low sweep, but then they would be able to react to something like Fury Swipes. Fury Swipes is reactable, but low sweep technically isn't. And lastly, like with Night Daze, both of these illusion inputs can be used in conjunction. I don't think I worded it very well down there, but basically, you can make the illusion do one of the follow-ups as you're canceling into with R or jump. This just shows it doing an attack that won't actually hit the opponent instead of just running forward like a freaking idiot. I find it funny that I was worried about the Vespiquen video probably taking a long time, but these have a lot of freaking paragraphs in them. Oh my goodness. Anyway, sorry, going to 4A, Focus Blast. Now for this move, Zoroark creates a large ball of energy in his hand before winding it up and chucking it forward at the opponent. On impact, the ball detonates right away, creating a 4-hit explosion and deals decent amount of damage. The projectile also detonates if it goes around full screen since it reaches that far, so opponents who are like barely out of reach could still get hit by some of the hits of the multi-hit. And then lastly, it also detonates when trading with projectile, so it kind of creates like a little barrier too for Zoroark. It is pretty slow though, so that's why something like Night Daze is probably more useful for blocking projectiles instead of just chucking Focus Blast. So opponents who are very close to Zoroark can punish it on block, but they can also, if they're around mid-range, be able to jump over it. It also depends on if the character has a good jump to be able to get over it in time and be able to punish, but you know. Now for its illusion, this is a little different compared to the last two because it's not trading a separate follow-up like the other two because this only has one follow-up where he's chucking it. This is instead a different follow-up that can only be done with the illusion input. For this illusion, the ball goes forward a bit before disappearing. Now when it reappears, it's actually above Zoroark's head and falls down at an angle in front of it. Think of it like Mewtwo's Focus Blast, I guess, in that case. Now in total, this energy ball does 6 hits. There's 2 hits that drag the opponent down to make sure they go into the same get into the attack before the energy ball does the regular 4 hits as soon as it hits the ground. This actually does the same amount of damage as the regular version despite being more hits, just so it's consistent in that way. Now, this attack launches the opponent in the air, and because it's a later hit for the illusion to follow, Zoroark can actually combo after this hit. It does scale heavily, but he can't do that. Bad thing about this though is that it does leave Zoroark wide open. You'd want to use this move if you think the opponent is going to try to jump over the initial hit, so it hits them in the air as they're trying to jump over it and then drags them back down and launches them. Bad thing about this move though is that the opponent can easily tell if you use it like right in front of them that it's fake, because the ball would just pass through them and then they can punish Zoroark. Now, while he can get hit and the ball will still fall down, if he gets grab punished, obviously the projectile just gets erased and he gets punished. The angle it goes at also means that it's not going to go as far as the normal version, but because it is slated, it is safer on block. And one tiny negative thing, because it does go down at that angle, that also means that projectiles could probably go under the projectile if it doesn't go down in time and hit Zoroark. But then again, I feel like a situation like that would only happen if the opponent is far away, and in that case, why would you be doing the illusion fall? But you know what? Whatever, that's not the point. Another idea I had for the projectile would be as it's coming down, it's like the regular version where it detonates on impact with anything, but I felt like it'd be easier to just have it like drag the opponent down instead and just detonates only on the ground. Alright, for its 8A, we have Night Slash. This is a DP move because Zoroark needs it. Basically, Zoroark imbues its claws with dark energy before rising up into the air with a slash. This knocks the opponent down on hit. Obviously, he has counter armor in frame 1, and the slash knocks the opponent down. Now, it might be simple, but there is follow-ups to it. With the 8AA input, Zoroark wakes a step before slashing back down diagonally. This slash combos after the first hit and is safe on block, though it is -8, so it's still pretty bad. It also pierces though. However, because it does wait a bit, it can be anti-aired. Because it can always just be anti-aired, it is always the safest option for both hits, because you'd be able to punish the first slash with an 8Y, or be able to punish the slash down with an 8Y. So it's not a move that is basically just like a huge guess, but the illusion input does kind of make it that way actually. 8A by itself doesn't have one, but 8AA does have it. For the 8AA illusion input, Zoroark's slash down is shown a bit before disappearing. When it reappears, it appears at a set distance to where it's like usually behind the opponent if the opponent's right in front of them. Because it is, it crosses the opponent up and delivers an upward slash in the opposite direction, knocking them back towards where Zoroark originally was. This follow-up knocks him down too, but it also doesn't pierce, nor does it combo after an initial 8A unless there's a critical hit, which does make it good for when you realize you do hit the critical hit with an 8A, and then you do the illusion follow-up just for positioning. This illusion follow-up is also really good to prevent the opponent from just spamming 8Y after the initial 8A, so he can't just get like hit out of the 8AA. Alright, now for its 2A punishment. It's punishment time! I said it even more weird than I probably should have because I don't want people to hear me downstairs. For this move, Zoroark surrounds one of its claws in dark energy before slashing horizontally forward. This simply hits the opponent like a normal move would, but it doesn't do any combos or anything special like that. It doesn't launch them, doesn't do combos. However, the move does change depending on how many buffs the opponent has, and in doing that, it gets more hits and more powerful. When the opponent has one buff on them, Zoroark then swipes with its other claw upward. Not only does it have the second hit, but it also has more vertical range. This second hit deals more damage than the first hit, and it also knocks them down by launching them far away. The launch away is really good because if the opponent's against a wall, then it wall swipes them and Zoroark can combo after it. When the opponent has two buffs, first off, the second hit no longer launches them away, instead being another combo hit. So it'd be the first hit, and then the second hit, and then the third hit, which is a backflip kick. Obviously, this one is much stronger than the last one, and it also puts Zoroark in the air. This kick launches them into the air, which can be used for combos, though it does scale pretty heavily since it does do a lot of damage just by itself. For how this move is on block, the level 1 version is like -8, the level 2 version is -4, and then the third version is very plus. I don't know if it'd be +4 or +8, but it would be plus. This is all a single block string too, so the opponent can't even like counterattack and do to it. Since it isn't another input you done afterwards, it's just an automatic combo done after it, so it's not like 2 Though the first hit of this does have a lot of startup to it, so the opponent can react with something like block to it. It probably, if they did try to like hit it out with counterattack, they would probably get hit by the last hit because the last hit does deal multiple hits. However, the first hit of the attack does have a lot of startup to it, so the opponent can block it on reaction. You'd also potentially punish it with counterattack, but it's a lot of hits that happen back to back, so it might beat out counterattacks on most occasions. This is especially the case considering the last hit is probably going to be a multi-hit if I were to assume, maybe like 3 hits for the backflip kick. But yeah, this startup is very important because that means Zoroark can't just spam the move multiple times if the opponent has 2 buffs, but also it complements the illusion follow-up. For this illusion follow-up, it's pretty simple. Zoroark simply does the first hit of the attack, but it'll just phase through the opponent and Zoroark can react out of it right away. It's kind of similar to Night Daze a bit, except you don't have to do a dash or jump after it. You're just able to move right away out of it. Because it's reactable with grab or counterattack, this means that the opponent's more likely to do that. And because of that, if you cancel it and it phases right through them, sure, maybe sometimes they'll be able to react to it on time and realize, oh, I'm in this bad situation, but when Zoroark reappears, he can do something like a grab to mix them up. This attack especially hates counterattacks because it just has multiple ways to beat them. What makes this illusion follow-up also really interesting is that it gives like use to level 1 punishment. Because usually it'd be like, oh, level 1 punishment, that's so weak, I'm -4, why would I ever do that? You can use it to fake people out. And also, if people think you're gonna do it because, oh, like why would you do that? And then you actually do the hit, then they get hit. And while you can't combo or do anything after that, you're still plus after it. This is why I really like the illusion mechanic, especially for punishment here, because it brings a whole new level of mind games. Alright, for its last A move, we have Embargo. Man, there's a lot of moves that, well, yeah, quite a few moves you'd be like, why would you ever use this move in like the main games, like Embargo, Punishment, Low Sweep, Fury Swipes. I mean, Low Sweep's kind of decent. People don't even use Night Daze in competitive, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, how this move works is that Zoroark, while in the air, obviously, because it's a J, he conjures a chain of dark energy in his hand. He uses this chain and then lashes downward against the opponent. Now, this is a hit grab, which means the opponent can block it, but it does bring them into like a grab-like state if they're hit. If they do block it, it is punishable for Zoroark. But if they do get hit by it, the chain wraps around them and Zoroark swings them into the air behind it. Like, kind of like a little arc before, like, so he's literally just like swinging them around it in a circle and then slamming them down to the ground. And as they make impact to the ground, an explosion of dark energy occurs, launching them a bit into the air and knocking them down. This does a decent amount of damage, but the big bonus to this is that it gives them a very, very good debuff, only found on Yveltal so far in the game, because the no synergy burst debuff. Now, if this was a regular grab, that'd be pretty broken, but because it's in the air and you can kind of just block someone who's in the air most of the time, I think that makes this fair a bit. Zoroark also has the ability of changing the trajectory of the chain if he does the J4A input or J6A input, which will put the chain, guess what, closer or further away from him. Oh my god, big surprise there. The closer one would be kind of pretty much underneath him, and the second one would be pretty like in the mid-screen range. And obviously that just means J is like in the middle of that. This is very good because the chain is admittedly pretty thin, so it's not going to be hitting like a wide range when it gets thrown down. It does make it so you have to be precise with the move a bit to get that no synergy burst debuff. For its illusion input, Zoroark shows the illusion of the lash animation, but then he actually, as the illusion disappears, he's shown to be on the ground. It's kind of like an airdrop maneuver. This can prevent him from getting hit by certain anti-airs. Well, at least if he's on the ground, he won't get like air combo afterwards at the very least. But also it's good to mix up with like grabs like that, though it is not as quick as like something like Punishment is. That's Punishment's kind of thing. It's just be very quick with the mix-ups. It can't be punished with anti-airs all the time though, because the chain is admittedly pretty long, so you'd ideally want to use it when you're pretty high in the air. Something I just thought of, and something that I thought would be very, very cool too, is if he whiffs it, he has the option to do the airdrop maneuver kind of and just like pull himself to the ground. I just thought of that and I thought that'd be very cool. I don't know if that'd be too dumb to do, like if you're in the air and your opponent tries to like punish you and then you're just like, oh, Embargo, go to the ground. That does seem very cool though, but I just thought of that right now. It's kind of off script, but yeah. What script though? I don't even just read the word for word on the freaking slides because I'm just like, I gotta do multiple takes to say it the way I want. Oh my goodness. Alright, but now that we're done with the Pokemon moves, it's time to go to Zoroark's Synergy Burst. Now visually for the Synergy Burst, since he doesn't have a Mega Evolution, Zoroark would have a purple and little bit of black aura going around him. The blue bangle in its little ponytail would also glow a bit. Its eyes would leave a trail of light like other Synergy Bursts like Lucar's and Scizor's, and it would leave around very faint after images of itself as it's moving. This isn't done in a way to distract the opponent, it's just for looks. For move changes, Zoroark's illusions last a bit longer, which means it does hide itself longer, and it can make the opponent think, oh, is he actually going to do this follow-up, only for them to be surprised when they find out that they didn't do that follow-up. Punishment also always does the third hit, though it doesn't actually leave them like +8 like I was saying, it actually leaves them 0. It also wouldn't do as much damage, but both of those things would change depending on how many buffs they would have. I would say that if it has one buff, then it would be +4 and deal a moderate amount of damage, and then if they have 2 buffs, it would do the same amount of damage as it would out of burst, and be +8 like it would be out of burst. All around, this burst would be 150cc and lasts 11 seconds. The only other burst in the game that does last 11 seconds is Charizard, if I recall, so it's kind of... one less second's a lot, I feel, in Pokken, so I feel like it's very fair for someone like Zoroark who already has a lot of mix-up potential and is 150cc. For its burst attack, Elusive Phantom, Zoroark's claws extend with Hone Claws. Afterwards, it slashes with both of its claws in an arc in front of it. Hits very wide range. No matter if both of them hit or only one of them hit, it then transitions into the rest of the move. These slashes are indeed very long though. It reaches around slightly less than mid-screen, and because he's swinging them upwards, this also means he can hit opponents who are in the air who try to like jump away or something. However, because it is pretty quick and wide range, it is punishable on block. When the opponent's hit though and it transitions into the rest of the cutscene, it's then shown that Zoroark is like walking very threateningly in front of them. The opponent then reacts to like the menacing aura or something, and JoJo poses, and then they react to it, and then they're like walking back slowly to be like, oh, I'm so scared, I want to get away from this. But then Zoroark disappears because it's an illusion. This is very badass with that. I feel like it's very, very cool, and it gets even cooler, I think, when we get into it more. The opponent turns around only to see a giant Zoroark in front of them. It's just staring them down and preparing to slam its claws, similar to something like Night Daze. The animation wise is planning to use something like that. The opponent, realizing, oh shoot, I am probably going to die if I stay here, tries to back up again, but then trips on itself. And this is where it's really, really cool, because as it's tripped down and they're trying to get back up, when they're lying down on the ground like that, the Embargo chains from Embargo go around the opponent and chain them to the ground, like wrapping them around, keeping them stuck there. And then during this, the giant Zoroark begins to slam its hands down like it would for a normal Night Daze. Except right when its hands are about to reach the opponent, it then disappears and shows that the actual Zoroark is where its hands are, and is about to do its own Night Daze to slam down on the opponent. So it's like the opponent was scared of a giant thing when it was just Zoroark, the regular Zoroark the entire time. and as it does slam down, it's a giant blast of dark energy, like in the anime. There's like a big part in the movie where it's just like destroys like an entire like city block or something with just this move. So it'd be like a very massive explosion that would do so much damage, like obviously a lot bigger than its normal Night Daze. But yeah, after slamming its fists down like that to do Night Daze, then it transitions back into the field phase where Zoroark is in the middle of the stage and the opponent is by the wall. Not so much attacking, because the only really attacking part is the very end of the move, but I think it's a very cool use of the illusions to make the opponent super scared, only to like chain them up like that before doing a massive explosion. That's like a reference to the Zoroark movie. Alright, now with that done with, now it's time for the easier parts, which is first off, references, because I'm a nerd. Now this is something I actually do want to bring up. Illusion in the main games is more so about disguising Zoroark as something else, but in other media it's also used to disguise with fake, like other fake illusions, not just disguising itself as something else. It does do that too in the anime, but for this case in Pokken, it's mainly about hiding things and then reappearing to punish the opponent. Now for its AY before, I mentioned already, but it's kind of like a reference to Snake's up tilt in Smash Brothers. It's kind of like a simple kick anyway, so I don't even know if it's like a reference. I don't know if like other fighting games have that type of move, but you know. For its high sense, it's actually a reference to the Pokédex, where it mentions the bonds between family. And well, not even just the Pokédex, but like the movies, like I mentioned. I thought that's a very cool way to reference that. I also mentioned it before, but Saberwolf's Eclipse attack was a big inspiration for its counter attack. And now we get to the actual Pokemon moves and how they correlate. Like agility's being based on speed, or Fury Swipes is a multi-hit attack. Low Sweep does also give a speed down in the main game, so that's also where it gets that from. Punishment's an obscure move, I feel, so like I guess it's like a good point to like reference why it does what it does in Pokken that I have down here. It actually does the exact same thing where it gets more powerful, but the more buffs the opponent has. It does it for each stat buff too, so it's like matches perfectly with how it is in Pokemon, where one stat buff would do one level, and then if it has two stat buffs, then it does the level 3 version. Embargo is also another weird one, because it's just like no one uses it. In the main games, it makes it so it gets rid, the opponent can't use any items. So in this case, it's like restricting a thing that you can do in Pokken normally, which is using Synergy Burst. That's how that correlates. Hone Claws from its burst attack actually doesn't, I don't think it ever says it actually extends the claws in the main games, but it is a reference to the anime where I think it was like Bees Halucha used it against Ash. And the claws like extended, so like that's how that works here. And I mentioned it in the burst attack itself, but Night Daze causing that massive explosion is a reference to the anime movie. Literally destroy an entire city block, because why the hell not? Now lastly, for the summary, I feel like Zoroark all around is a pretty strong character. Its cons are usually for the certain other technical data. Like I guess I could start off with a few of the cons real quick. It has one of the lowest HP intervals and values in the entire game, being at 510. It also has a weak block, so if it keeps getting pressured, it has a lot of tools to get the opponent off of it, but if it keeps getting pressured, it can get its shield broken. If they put Bandai, if you put this entire moveset, be sure to make it a weak shield so then I can do my Yveltal Empoleon setup on it. Might be a winning matchup, because I could just drill peck and beat every option for everything. It's all around me. But going back to the pros, its illusions are very, 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 very good for mixing up the opponent and hiding what it actually wants to do. And it can do that whether with its projectiles from far away, using it to get in, many different scenarios for all of its A moves to make the opponent think, oh, he's going to do something, and then he doesn't. Even some other moves have 2 different illusion inputs, which can really get in the opponent's head. Being a speed character also has a lot of moves that help it get in. Besides the illusions, those being Back Y, Adex, Night Daze, and Agility. Focus Blast, while slow, is still a pretty big projectile that can do a lot of damage to the opponent, and its illusion input does beat out jumps, which is one of its main weaknesses when you use it normally. Night Slash is a DP. That's kind of it. It's just a DP. It does have the ability to be safe on block, though it's also still like you kind of got to be careful, because like either option you're still gonna be like minus or punchable off of it. Punishment as a tool kind of like screws a lot of characters over, because certain characters will buff themselves, like Breaks in with Sunny Day, or Aegis Slash's entire character. You punish Aegis Slash for being Aegis Slash, which I can appreciate. Applying debuffs is always good, especially Embargo, being able to get rid of Synergy Burst. The speed down from Low Sweep is also pretty helpful. Prevents people from just running away from Zoroark, so he can't rush them down more. And then finally, it gets its Synergy Burst really quick, and its illusions get enhanced too. And now for more of the weaknesses. Attacks that have a wide range can still affect Zoroark's illusions, because he's not invincible through most of them. I mentioned it before, but maybe some of them would, but I wasn't still entirely sure of that. But just in case, wide range moves would still do a lot, especially longer lingering ones. Like, I guess the biggest example I think of is Chandelure 8Y, because either way, longer lasting ones could probably beat out the invincibility frames. The invincibility frames would be very, like, brief. It'd be like Sceptile GX. Going back to its Focus Blast projectile, like I said, it's very strong, but it's not going to be winning like zoning wars against other zoners with it, because not only does it like get deleted from hitting other projectiles instead of like going through it, it's just very slow and can get punished. Night Slash again. It's a DP again. Don't use it wrong. Now, a con I haven't really mentioned much is that he doesn't have too many long-ranged moves, at least the ones that I mentioned, that are also far range. Like, if you notice, Focus Blast is a projectile that's far range, but it takes a while to go. Night Slash technically goes far away with the 8AA input because it goes forward, but that's also very slow and can get anti-air. Embargo requires him to be in the air. Low Sweep and Fury Swipes rely on him using agility first, which takes a little bit of time. Night Daze clearly isn't hitting horizontally much. It's mostly vertical for his stuff. 8Y2. So he does have the long range moves to get in with his like lunging attacks, but they're not entirely quick, which is very fair for everything else this character has. Two other moves that I think relate to that too are Back Y and 8X. And then lastly, its burst attack, while high range, punishable on block. It'd also be pretty decently strong. Also, I wasn't sure for the burst attack if it should give it the no synergy burst debuff during the hits, because he technically does use Embargo during it, but it's not like the Embargo's like an attack. It's just chaining him down. It wouldn't do any damage. Unless he somehow like detonates the chains as he does Night Daze, which I never thought would be a sentence I would say in my life. You ever just like blow up chains? But yeah, that is Zoroark in Pokken. Wait, what if Zoroark was in Pokken? I say all around a lot, but that's because I'm just like, I'm terrible at things. But all around, this is a really cool moveset, I thought. This is the first one since the Tyranitar one where it was entirely by myself. I didn't really have help on it, but I think I did a really good job making this together. I thought it would be very cool for a character like Zoroark to have if he ever got into Pokken. Now, while I think the illusions are cool, do I think they're not stupid? No, they're definitely stupid. Like I said, it'd be a character I would like to play as because I like mix-ups and stuff like that. But also, it's kind of like, man, I would understand if my opponent got really mad if they had to fight someone like illusion spamming Zoroark players. But yeah, like I said, that was a very fun character, I thought. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video. I always appreciate a like or subscribe for the support, and also be sure to comment below what type of Pokemon you want to see next. I always take requests. Always much appreciated, guys, and see ya. Cute. Look at that boy. Meow.